What is up, guys? We have officially made it to my most anticipated movie of 2024, MaXXXine. All of our hopes and dreams, our aspirations, everything we wanted this to be, I feel like we have manifested it. I feel like we just got the conclusion to the greatest horror trilogy we've ever seen. So MaXXXine follows our main character, the same name, played by Mia Goth. It's a follow-up to X, but it's like 4 or 5 years in the future. Now it's in Hollywood. Everything she was spouting about in that movie, becoming a household name, a star, it's kind of happened, at least in the adult film industry. So it picks up where that happened just years into the future. So that's what she's trying to do in this one. She's trying to make the transition from being an adult film star into an everyday movie star that everybody will know the name of. So she auditions for this very famous horror movie franchise, hoping to get that role, and she eventually gets it. But unfortunately for her, her past has a way of catching up to her. So, as things always seem to happen with this character, she's not out of the blue yet, and something sinister is about to happen. You have this killer on the loose. He's targeting her, everybody close to her. There's like a blackmail thing going on. So you have this mystery going on. It's a whodunit of what's going on and why they're after her. Something I found very refreshing about MaXXXine compared to the other two is that it is unique and it's a standalone movie in its own right. It's very original and it's different from the other two while maintaining a lot of the tonal similarities, the main storyline. I appreciate that. If you have X, obviously it's a slasher, but it's kind of commentary on old age. Then you have Pearl, and it's a study of mental health and psychopathic tendencies. It's just a character piece done really well. And this is a little bit different, obviously. It takes place in the 80s like X, but it's not that. It's kind of a slasher whodunit. It's a mystery. But more particularly, it's a giallo. It's like a homage to that, where it's kind of going for this very artsy, investigative mystery where you're trying to figure out who did it, who's blackmailing her. So in that regard, I really respect it. Again, similarities, but it stands on its own. The film takes place in the 80s, much like X, and because of that, there's more 80s tonal things going on with the music choices, the art, and there's other social things that were relevant at the time, like the Night Stalker's a big thing. He's a piece in the background where you have this news broadcast always talking about him and his killings that are going on, social commentary about Satanism and religion and music, art, films. There's just a bunch of stuff going on that was relevant to the 80s as a decade present in this. And since I didn't think there were a lot of negatives to this, I will point out one negative. Again, it's not really a negative to me, but it might be a negative to a bunch of people. I kind of think this movie's mismarketed a little bit. Like the way they advertise this, it feels like it's this giant Night Stalker murder mystery. He's going to be highly centric to it. He's really not. He's just kind of like a contrast they're doing with commentary to him being around. He's not actually relevant to her. So again, going into it, be a little bit cognizant of that. I didn't mind it. I was very engrossed in the story. But again, just be warned, he's not actually a central part of this. That being said, to its core, MaXXXine still is totally a slasher whodunit movie. It is an homage to giallo films. Anybody who may be unfamiliar with those, they're foreign artsy films where there's always a murder mystery, there's an investigator. That's what this is to its core. So, going into it, be aware of that. It is still a fun time. It's just not centric to the Night Stalker. Now, where I think this one differs a little bit from the other two, but it's unique in its own way, this one really feels a lot more centric to horror movie fanatics and lovers. I think they'll get a lot more out of this. I think everyone can enjoy this. It's a good movie. But, the other ones, I think you could be new to the franchise. X and Pearl, you could get something out of those. I think this one will be a lot more contrasted, whether people really like it or, they're okay with it. I don't think a lot of people are going to dislike it, but I definitely think it's a love letter. It's a giallo, as I said, to horror movie fanatics. A lot of mentions and references, in news clippings to old horror movies, a lot of movie sets. This is a horror movie fanatic's dream movie. So, if you love horror movies like me, you're going to have a blast with this one. Surprisingly, as I'm sitting here thinking about why I love this film, what made it memorable, you probably think acting, gore, and those things are really, really good, but it's not that. It's the music and sound design. And, I don't want to go over the top with recency bias, but this film might have one of, if not my favorite soundtrack and sound design ever. I loved this movie's sound design and soundtrack. Everything they did, all of the details that were paid attention to from the era, it just was so immersive in being in the 80s. The soundtrack choices, neon buzzing lights from the alleyways. There is absolutely no detail spared to this movie's sound design. It stands out like a sore thumb. It is by far my favorite part of this film, and I like just about everything in it. The choice to go for a combination of sound where they're reusing some of the score from Pearl and X, where it's this high-pitched screeching, but it actually kind of sounds like people fucking, honestly. I think that's kind of the point because it's an adult film industry. And then you have the combination of that with the 80s retro music and, all of the sounds, the synth that make you feel like you're part of the decade. But they're not the most reused hits, like where you've heard them in 50 movies. They're like the B tier of 80s music. So it feels kind of fresh, like they actually went out of their way to pick songs that had a purpose. And then they mix that with this weird noir soundtrack where it feels like you're in the middle of this Hitchcock murder mystery. I just thought the musical choice and the sound design was genius. Just like the other two films, all of the acting in this movie is phenomenal, including Mia Goth as Maxine. And I feel like I'm just raving about her at this point. I keep bringing the same points up. I don't know how many more times I can say it, but it just feels like she was born to play this role. She is so good. And more than that, it just feels like this is the role she's having the most fun to play as an actress. Of all the things I've ever seen her in, it just feels like she has really embraced this role. And I'll do a little bit more commentary about that in a video later this week. I'm going to give my thoughts on what I think is going on with this franchise going forward, any of that. But regardless, she's great in this. And as I said, all of the acting in this film is good, so I won't get into all of the particulars. But one more honorable mention goes to Kevin Bacon as the sleazy private investigator. I love this guy and everything he's in, going back to Stir of Echoes, Before and After, all these horror movies. He's one of my favorite actors. Glad to see him in this. He plays this sleazy private investigator. He's in his feud with Maxine. There's some laughs. There's some action. It's kind of a caricature of a character, like a lot of things in this franchise are, but it never gets cartoony. I thought it was just a right about of like sleaziness. I loved it. Horror fanatics will be pleased to find out that just like the other two films, the gore in this movie is top notch. It's all practical. Again, there's not as much gore as the other two movies, I don't think. Maybe there is. I'd have to rewatch it. I only saw it once compared to like 3 of the other ones, but it's really good. The gore that you get, some of the kill scene. Again, they're going for a giallo feel, a very artsy musical performance when they're killing people. Gore hounds will be pleased. They'll get what they want. The gore practical effects really good again. Now, much like the previous 2 films we've got from Ty West in this trilogy, I feel like this is a very layered film where it's kind of exploring a bunch of topics at once. You know, you have the slasher whodunit. That's the forefront. That is the obvious first layer that everybody who's viewing this will watch. But I feel like it's saying a lot more than that. There are literally so many references in this film from Ty West. I could do an entirely separate YouTube video of 10 to 15 minutes at least talking about all the little snippets you get, you know, in reference to old horror movies, Hollywood, X, Pearl, flashbacks, you know, double entendres where they're showing visuals contrasted with like metaphors, things that they're trying to show. There is so many layers to this film. That's something I really enjoyed about it. And I imagine that viewers will enjoy a lot more on the second and third viewing. So I give it props to that immediately. The combination of the visuals and the dialogue of this by Ty West really makes it feel like he's giving commentary on so much stuff, but in a subtle way. Like, again, he's poking fun at Hollywood, how serious they take themselves, like celebritism, how fanatical people are about that. You know, he's also getting into like what people will do to get famous, like sell their soul, that type of contrast. And then he's also making fun of how people think horror movies are inherently evil, like the satanic messages people thought were in them. The fact that you can't make a good, dirty movie. That was kind of the central purpose of X. Like, you know, it's just like a very meta take on the movie he's making with the commentary around it. Something I really enjoy about this entire trilogy. I also found a little bit of fun in the fact that he was poking fun at religious cults. Like, you know, nobody really wants to go at the good guys in these. Everyone's always like, Satan's a bad guy, Satanism. But it's funny because in these films, when you have these religious cults where they're so inclined to do good, they're so over the top, they essentially are exactly what they're preaching against in Satanism. They are these controlling, authoritarian whack jobs. Found a little bit of fun in the commentary towards that as well. And as I mentioned, the Night Stalker is not really a centric part to this film, at least not literally, but I feel like there are some contrasts you can draw pretty easily. Where, you know, like, if you're familiar with his crimes, any of his mental state, he said basically the devil possessed him to do it, or it inclined him to do it. It was like a satanic thing. And I feel like that's the contrast they're really going for in this. You know, will people sell their soul for fame, just like he basically sold his soul to the devil when he was killing these people, trying to appease him? I just think those are the contrasts you can really draw on why they decided to market the Night Stalker. Again, I could be wrong. I have a little bit more thoughts in this. Don't really want to go into it and spoil a bunch, but that's really what I got out of it. Do you agree, disagree? Comment down below. Let me know. I'll be interested in see what your interpretation of that was. And lastly, I feel like there's a lot of dialogue and commentary in this film that really feels like it's coming from a place of the director and Mia Goth talking to you through the characters. It's like art being a form of expression so they can talk to the truth, but in a subtle way. You know, there's a lot of stuff I mentioned in X and Pearl where there's dialogue like that, contrast between them in real life to their characters they've developed. This movie, more so than any, it really feels like they're talking to you as an audience member, kind of giving you their feelings through the characters. Where, you know, Maxine, she wanted to be a star. She came from nothing, became something. That really feels like Mia Goth's career trajectory at this point. Like, I'm not saying she was a bad actress. I really liked her work. But this film and this franchise really elevated her. She will be a household name now. Everybody will know Mia Goth if you've seen these movies. She's that good. Same with Ty West. I mean, I really, really like his old work. But this is a franchise and like a film and all these things that have really set him apart. People now know the name Ty West. He was always this low-budget horror person who was very practical. Like, I really think that they're talking through these characters, talking about the future of the characters, how they've built up themselves, how they've achieved fame. I really feel like that's how they feel about their career. These characters in this franchise are something they hold dearly. It's something that's personal to them. That's why you see the passion in the movie. As I said earlier, this is the movie in this franchise I could really see being a little bit more debatable if people like it, love it, hate it, any of that, because it definitely does feel like more of an homage to horror movie fans as opposed to the other two that were standalone. This one's really good standalone, but it's obviously building off of X a lot. They reference it a lot in these flashbacks, visuals, contrast, things like that. And again, I really like the fact that it's different. I think it will hold up even better on a second or third viewing if you marathon these movies, because you have tonal differences to all three. Again, you have the old age thing, you have the character study, and then you have a giallo. Just the tempo contrast will be great to break up that runtime, feel like they're all unique in their own way. I think it'll hold up really well. Some people might find the first half of this movie, first 30, 40 minutes, just like X and Pearl, to be a little slow. Maybe they don't really bind to the world. You don't love these characters. You might get lost a bit, but I was engrossed in it. I loved it. I thought the mystery was captivating. Soundtrack was awesome. The kills were awesome. I am just in love with this franchise, these characters he's created, this world, this art style. I would take 15 more movies if they do it. MaXXXine was just fucking awesome. Now I'm going to get into a couple of spoilers. Nothing too intense, but just a little bit, so you've been warned. You know, later on this week, I am going to make another video. I'll put it up to here at some point. It's going to be a commentary on this franchise, where I think it goes from here, the future of Mia Goth, Ty West, all that stuff. So be on the lookout for that, or click up here if it's up here by the time you watch this. But some of my thoughts on this film. First off, the kill with Kevin Bacon is absolutely awesome, where he just gets crushed in a garbage compactor. I thought that was brutal, but so cool. Again, the giallo kill in the video store, close second, but pretty damn good. But yeah, a couple things I didn't like about this, I guess, is I think the first half is a little slow. It's a little bit heavy on knowing X. I didn't really mind it. I think you can really enjoy this film if you don't see X, but I definitely think X helps a lot with enjoying this. And the twist they're going for, the giallo, I thought was fairly predictable. I kind of predicted it within 20 minutes based on the setup. So that could be a little bit of a turn off to people. I mean, like, I don't even want to give the specifics away from the twist. I mean, but it's pretty predictable. Put the pieces together. You'll be able to figure it out if you're here for the spoilers. But yeah, I mean, those are the only two gripes I really have with in terms of how this went. I really think this is almost a perfect conclusion, because whenever I think of a trilogy like this, people might think this is like worse or something, but it's harder to conclude than it is to make a start or a middle piece. So there's a lot of thought that goes into developing a story with a beginning, middle, and an end if you know it's the finale. So I give them a lot of props for that. And something I thought was kind of interesting about this film, though, is I really think that it kind of opens the door for more in this franchise. And that's what I kind of feel like they're going to do. I read something about Ty West where he was talking about the fact that he might not actually be done with this. It kind of depends on the reception of MaXXXine, how it does at the box office, how the fans like it. So I kind of think, based on how this goes and how this story ended, there's definite room that he might revisit this. And I am really interested in that because I kind of want to know his thoughts on how he's going to move forward. He has a lot of different ways he can go with this. And what I kind of hope they do, actually, in a weird ways, I almost hope they kind of conclude this here and Mia Goth just joins him. I definitely think, as I said, these two are really piggybacking off of each other. They're both great for one another. I hope they realize this, that they've caught lightning in a bottle, and they just build their careers together. I think Ty West and Mia Goth can go down as all-time greats, legendary, if they stay on this trajectory. I hope they kind of go the anthology route. Maybe they make like new movie trilogies where they do new characters, new storylines, maybe different eras. Like, again, we got slashers with these ones. Maybe we do more artsy. Maybe we do sci-fi. Maybe we do religious. Like, I think there's a lot we can explore. Paranormal. Like, I kind of hope that they just sign on together and go, you made me, I made you. Like, we're ride or die at this point, and they make some more. So I'm going to do a video fleshing out a little bit more of my thoughts on this. As I said, I'm going to put it up here if you're still here. If you haven't already, subscribe. What the hell are you waiting for? I do new releases, scary stuff, tier lists. I do these videos, commentaries, all that stuff. Subscribe down below if you haven't, all that shit. I'll see you guys in the next one. Peace.